Perfect. What's the weather like where you are, Tom?
Oh my word, I don't know if you can see outside. It was 10
Beautiful.
degrees,
Oh,
sun shining. I thought we were supposed to have rain all week.
hmm,
We didn't. So that's why I took a couple days off. Hello,
beautiful.
everybody. I don't know who's here yet. Let me refresh. Might just be you and me right now.
Well, that's okay. Then it's a great time to say, hey, Tom, happy sibling day.
There is it today?
Apparently, Facebook says so, so it must be true. And feel special. You're the only one I'm saying it to. You and me,
Love
baby.
it.
Yep, me too. Cheers. Cheers,
Love
big
it.
ears.
There you go. Cheers. Yeah,
Mm.
it's talking about Facebook and the truth, whatever truth. It, I realize more and more that we remember perspective, perception, right?
Heard that before. Hmm.
We live in a world where the powers to be, so the influencers, so they're not only money influencers, we know from like our social media influencers, whatever, so they don't have to be rich. But
Right.
we live in a world where there's so much influencers, so um, their uh, conviction of truth is a perception
Absolutely.
depending where you've been, right? And I do think with it, it's um, like we would all like pick an obvious one. Very easy to be against the government and
Sure.
corporate manipulations, all that, right? So,
Yep.
most people would agree with that. But the the perception that's given to us, like watching uh, Trudeau, sorry, watching Trudeau give most politicians give their speech, so they're giving you their um, perspective and saying, "Well, we're going to take care of this, and like we know everything's expensive, but like we got your back. We got a plan. We got a plan." I'm not even saying forever, right?
Yep.
So when we have all of these conflicting other things, then we come up with our perception. We go, well, screw the government, screw the tax, do whatever, right? When
Mhm.
we were in Greece, I think I may have told this first. Teresa and I were in Greece. I'm just refreshing because it was
Sure.
only you and me. Still only you and me, but that's awesome. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
good.
we went to Greece to see our friends who lived in Athens. So it was just such a culture shock to be in like the old world. And we went to England for a few days in Greece, right? My first time off, out of North America. And you're in Greece, and their taxes are 50% of their income is taxed,
Oh,
and
wow.
and most people aren't working, or they're working under the table. And it was this bizarre. So I was there. We're there with the friends. So me, and my friend who lives there, and he's great. So they were there. They were missionaries. But this is how cool this guy. He's a pastor. He looks like a hobbit. He looks like a Viking hobbit, like a big beard.
Okay.
I love this guy. This guy's been there for me. Him and his wife been there for me and trees forever. And so he went there, and what he went there to do was they lived in the anarchist area, so the police wouldn't even go in. It was like 10 blocks, and they would be military people with machine guns outside the 10 blocks. They wouldn't go in because it's
Wow.
dangerous. So
Yeah.
my friend lived in there, and it wasn't dangerous for them, but like there's graffiti, burnt out cars. It's pretty bad, right? It was like
Yeah.
Compton in a way.
Yeah,
And
right.
and so what he did is to bring value instead of trying to be like religious and all that. He worked with men, so young men could be 20 to 50 who didn't have jobs, right? So some of the guys that were tagging graffiti, he goes, well, why don't we take your art, which is really good? Why don't we make some t-shirts and sell them?
Oh, I
They
like
did that.
that.
He was able to get like, so this anarchist area, the one part of the area, it was all abandoned like 10 years before this, whatever. So squatters would come in, open up restaurants. There was a coffee shop restaurant there. Squatters come in, pay no rent.
Yeah.
Somehow, I don't know how they get the utilities, but they do, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so my buddy would like make pipes, like smoke tobacco pipes, and then
Yeah.
show them how to make knives. So just kind of a handy. So I
Right.
loved it because he didn't go, well, I'm going to show you what he went in going like, how can I help you?
Right.
And and he does stuff on East Vancouver now. He's in Vancouver now, and he's got the same mentality. He's not there to push an agenda.
Yeah,
He's going, if I'm going to be here to help, then I need to find out what they want help with. I don't need to come up with my perception. Oh, well,
right.
I'm going to help you with this. So
Yeah.
anyways, back in Greece, so he takes me to a car lot. This was like a Mercedes Benz, whatever it was in Greece. It was like, this was like a car lot we'd go to here, brand new Volkswagen, whatever, right? So he goes, watch this. We go in, we're dressed okay, wearing shorts, it's hot, right?
Yeah.
And the sales guy comes over, and him and my buddy are speaking Greek. And so then he goes, you speak English? Goes, oh, my friend's from Canada. He goes, oh, great, whatever. So he starts speaking broken English. And my friend goes, so tell me about this card. He goes, oh, this is how much it was, euros, right? He goes, are you paying cash, or are you like doing, I don't say a check, but so my friend says, well, I don't know, what's the difference? He goes, well, if you pay cash, I take 5,000 euro off. We do it under the table.
Nice.
This, not to pay, because,
Yeah.
and the roads were horrible. So part of it, their distrust and hate of the government and the Orthodox Church.
Right.
So even though there could be some good people in those
Yeah,
things that help people, perspective is, you're going to take advantage of me and you don't care about
that's right.
me,
Regardless
right?
of who it is, right? Because there's always a good portion in every field that has
Yeah,
a true heart, right? Like we can't paint everybody with a broad brush. And that's interesting because it sort of goes back to our talk that we had on limited beliefs. Because a lot of times that not trusting mentality is comes from your parents or your grandparents. You see that a lot when people hate the cops, right? Like, and for me personally, just my own personal opinion, I have big issue when like I get it as an adult, we all have our own opinion based on experience and whatever. But when it comes to kids, passing that on to them, what if they ever get kidnapped and they think cops are like you might have those scenarios where a cop is yelling a kid's name or they're in a scenario where they need help and they're not going to ask because they've got that preconceived notion already. You're right. Like it's such an interesting thing.
yeah. Hello, Wendy. We have a friend of yours, Wendy, that's on.
Oh, hello, Wendy. Very good.
Not our Wendy. It's your Wendy.
It's my
Your
Wendy,
friend.
my
Yeah.
friend Wendy.
Um,
Hi, Wendy.
yeah. Hello, Wendy. Hope you've had a good week so far. Yeah, it's here. You've heard of this, right? So it's like in back in some of the wars, say the Korean War, right? And you get captured and you're a prisoner, right? And so what do they try to do to break your mind? They do the waterboard, they do the
Yeah,
starvation music. So they attack you mentally, and then in attacking you mentally, they're doing it to control you, right?
that's right.
And the same thing on a bit of a lesser scale, but the same idea. Mom, I think sorry, Mom. When we lived in Toronto in Scarborough, she was those
Oh,
little kiosk gas station thing where like it's just a little room and a little glass thing. Well, she got robbed by two Jamaican men,
mm,
and I remember like I was like I don't know 14, and she was terrified. And we
yep,
lived in an area where there's a lot of Jamaican people, so
yep,
all of a sudden this fear or perception that because you said a cop
yep.
or they're black or
Or
they're an immigrant
yeah,
or they're have a different sexual identity or they're
absolutely.
religious, right?
Yep,
And in all of those groups, if I can freely say this here, there's I'll say it nicely. There's butt heads. There's
absolutely.
evil, selfish,
Yep.
um, own agenda in
Mhm.
every aspect of life, and there is good people on every aspect of life.
Exactly right. Every country, every nationality, there's always going to be the butt heads, like you said. Yep, for sure. And this is where, wouldn't it be sad if someone else approached us with that same thinking, right?
Yeah,
Whether, whatever it is. So, yeah, I think this is where, having that personal evolution, if you will, where we're growing and changing and using that common head thinking, like, does that really make sense? All these people all have that one tainted quality, if you will, right? So I think, yeah, I think that's really important that we open our eyes and we realize those judgments could happen to any of us, right?
Yes,
Anytime.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and I and I think with it, because we're talking about experience, right? So what happens is, so some of the courses I've taken, which I love, and so there's really only, like, truthfully, we only learn through experience.
That's
Now, as a young child, if we have a so we're older. I'm older. I'm oldest, but so if we look back, that the uncles and aunts and the parents in our generation would be now in their 70 to 80s type
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
So the way that generation, the way so mom's mom, Grandma Jean, the way she, did you ever meet Grandma Jean?
I did one time, but I couldn't really understand her. Her French was prominent.
Yeah.
I
So
smiled and nodded a lot.
yeah, and so so again, this again is so mind-boggling. We we don't have, we don't understand. I'll give you an example. What Ethan did to mom the other day, but we didn't live in the way the world was 20
That's
years
right.
before us. And when we were kids, regardless of what homes we were in, now some of it is our, the demographics and different things were in.
Mhm.
You had a good environment. We had a very tough environment. But in the age of history,
Yeah,
what was going on in the world, I remember being, I think JFK got assassinated at 64,
sounds about
60,
right.
anyway. I was younger, right? So, but I remember that. I remember being in a store with mom, and I just, like, I don't remember it because I was a kid, but I remember it because it was this thing that just
Right.
rippled.
That's right.
It's like the joke. Did you guys find? Were you guys able to see the whatever what happened with the sun solar eclipse?
We didn't watch it.
It wasn't
Just
worth it, right?
yeah. Well, you know what? That's not something that wows me. And I knew full and well within 20 minutes of it being over, I was going to see the very best shots all over social media, and I did. So it didn't make sense to me. And a part of me on the inside was like, you're really trusting paper glasses? Like, I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying, like, if it really, I don't know, it just wasn't that interesting that it was worth maybe risking my eyeballs. I don't know. So I didn't bother, but
So
it
you're
what's did you?
no, I was going to say through your experience, you've come to a conclusion, which
Yeah.
is great. Yeah, it's funny because I saw a commercial with Jimmy Fallon. So I quickly went to record him, and he's pretty funny. He's just a funny guy, right? And for me, you might not like him. I like him.
I like
Not
it
in that.
better than some of the others. So
Yeah.
yes.
So he said what you said. He goes, after the solar eclipse, he goes, there'll be 82 million pictures and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, I just think, like, I'm in marketing and sales for copy, and I try not to be a shyster, right?
Right.
But you talk about experience, and then you talk about um, how some people, different, could be any background, doesn't matter,
Sure.
but how they have their own agenda, and so they manipulate you, or they taint you. So the old joke about the used car salesman. I know some used car salesmen that are really honest and good people,
Yeah.
but it's this perception of, I'm going to take advantage of you, right?
They're gonna sell
And
you a lemon. Yep.
yeah, and so in it, we got another person there. Great, who is it? Brian. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
But but yeah, so back to, we're talking about experience for those, Brian, for joining us, and hope you guys had a good week. Like you said, Brian and Wendy so far, and there'll be more. Um, so, and everything we're talking about, it's experience, so the world experience. I was having a conversation with somebody about I'm not going to get so deep into it because it'd be my perception,
Yep.
But kind of the biggest change we've seen in human history was the Industrial Revolution.
Hmm.
In shifting, not that we weren't smart before and all that, but
Yep.
something that shifted with the positive, the good, and with the not good. So this guy was an old English guy, grew up in England, and with his parents, back in early 1900s, that experiences, coal and this, and like all of a sudden, man felt so like we can go to the moon. We did it later, right? But sometimes, I think the challenge, goes with experience. What happens is we're not always aware of everybody. Maybe we'll be overwhelmed by that, but the experience tells us like we have to go through whatever we go through, and then at the end of it, we go, oh crap. The good and bad of it, right? I've got a couple of quotes. Let me read a quote for you. Oh, you have questions for me, by the way.
Yeah.
So here's a quote. Let me start with I'm gonna do good old Oprah Winfrey. Like her or not, doesn't matter, right? Everybody can have good words. She goes, I'm a woman in process. I'm just trying like everybody else. I try to take every conflict, every experience, and learn from it. Life is never dull.
I love that.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, very good. And it's so true, right?
Our outlook. So we've shared in this thing about dealing with back when it happened, but the loss of your father, right?
Right.
And how we in the midst of the initial loss, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking till today.
Oh, absolutely.
But through life and growing and getting married and kid, like all these types of things happen,
Yep.
they don't take away the loss, but now we're looking at it through the lens of time, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And we may not be we may have worked through grief, which is good and stuff like that. That's funny thing, grief, talking about experience. I think in our culture, we're not very good at grieving. I don't think, uh, maybe it's a bit of our English background too. I think we, men especially, sorry, anybody on there, it's a
Sorry,
man.
Ryan.
Yeah, sorry, Ryan. But I'm not saying every man, but
Of course.
we, back to the 80 years ago, the fathers and the uncles that raised parents,
Yeah.
they had no experience before them to ever deal with anything emotional. It was like your head down, work hard, discipline the kids, bring home the bacon.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's so true. And there's so many facets of our life today that are new that we're experiencing for the first time. So no wonder we're struggling maneuvering our way through it. Like it's funny when you think about how much we've evolved. I remember when we got our color TV, and my mom was watching, she worked at Sears, and she bought a color TV with her spending money, right? Because this was what her job was for. And she used to watch this show Tattletales. I don't
I
know if
remember.
you remember. Do you remember it? And they were couples, and they were all dressed in colors. I have no idea who these famous people were now, but it was like the red couple, the yellow, the green, whatever. And then the panel at the front. And it's so funny when you think about it now, because the women would sit on their laps, like all these different things that would be so poo pooed on today. But I remember, so I'm sitting and I'm watching it, and you got to think, our TV was the big cabinet. Nobody stole TVs back then. So this is a big cabinet. And I think the new one had a record player in the top. If anybody
Yeah.
doesn't know what a record is, please send us the questions. And so they unplugged it, the Sears guy, and he pushed it out of the way, and then he plugged it in. And of course, we had our 12 or 13 channels, and he put it back to whatever channel it was on. And I was like, wow. And I'm one of the first generations, all of us that are our age, that we had Sesame Street. And so, like, what a change to your whole world that was, just having colored TV. So then, if you fast forward to now, and it's funny, Robert and I were driving today with the kids, and Xavier's mad because his tablet won't, or switch. I'm not up on the tech, but it wouldn't charge. So he's mad. And then Gemma and Alice, they're like arguing over the tablet. And we started laughing because we're like, when he was a kid, and then going back to when I was a kid, I said, the game we played was dodging dad's arm because he was reaching right. We go
Oh
on
yeah.
vacation, he was reaching back because don't make me pull over was a real thing, right? So it's so interesting watching them evolve, and then the parents that have different environment, like everything's so different, and it's so many changes in really like 2 generations or 3 generations. So it's so interesting, and I think that hindsight is 2020, right? When you look back and you realize, the experience you had, maybe what you could have done different, what you would do the same, sort of what you would carry forward. And then going back to that perspective. So here's a funny one. When I was 18, I got pregnant and I moved in with my boyfriend, and we lived in Kitchener, Ontario, and my parents hated him. And we moved there, and to get finish my grade 12, I went to unwed mother's home where I didn't live there, but I could go and get my grade 12, which I ended up doing. So I was 19, I was 18 maybe at that time, because I turned 19 and then I had him a month later. So I was 18, and there was girls there that had never been to high school, and they were pregnant. So that was the age range, like 13 to, I was one of the oldest ones at 18. And they'd take us on these field trips. And I didn't know anybody in Kitchener, which was probably fabulous. But they'd take us bowling. They'd take us, and I looked even really, really young, because look how young I look right now. But so they'd take us on these field trips. And we go through this one mall, and we're all young and pregnant, and these older, like much older ladies would give us these shameful looks, and they'd say things to each other. And I remember we had counselors. Actually, it was that place that got me involved with Children's Aid, which is how I found you guys, right? It was so, or I don't know what the future would hold, but they counseled everybody with a Children's Aid worker, because some girls kept and some girls put their kids up for adoption. So we go, and I felt embarrassed that they were like snickering and being rude, these older ladies. And it was one of the counselors. And I remember her saying, how old do you think those ladies were? And then I said, I don't know, 70, 80, something like that. And then she had me do the math. And she says, how old do you think she was when she had her first baby? And then you start thinking about, okay, so I had Alec in 87. So maybe this lady was born in 1917. She was probably married at 14, pregnant at 15 and 16 and 17 and 18. So obviously she had forgot her own past and was judging us. And it really was a mind shift for me, thinking, like and I was a good mom. Like I babysat all through high school. I was a really good mom, especially for a young mom, and I'm really proud of that, and where my life took me. So it just really changed everything for me, to really look at the source of who's judging me. And people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. That's the other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think too, it's so interesting. I made as I do, made a whole bunch of notes as we're talking. Because so speaking of experience, so probably like you, and it's probably like most of us, is this somebody says something and it triggers a memory or a
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
or a conviction or whatever, right? So do you remember those books? What year were you born in again? 60?
8.
Oh my word, you're so young.
No,
Um, I
weird.
I was, I'm not going to show you now. I'm going to show you next time because I have to get up and move the camera in that. So have you heard of a thing online called, you can order stuff called Temu, Temu?
It's familiar, but I can't tell you I know
Yeah,
what it is.
it's a bunch of like some stuff's fine, it's cheap. Tammy does it, stuff like that. So I ordered a shirt, and I remind me to show it next week. And so I was born in '61. So I ordered this shirt. It was like $7, and I don't need any more t-shirts. I have like 1,000, but I
Right.
ordered this shirt, and when I open it up, it says like whatever it says from the '50s. I'm going. I was born in the '60s. They sent me the wrong shirt. So, which is hilarious. I haven't sent it back yet. I want to find somebody born in the '50s, give it to you.
Yeah, just gift them.
Do you remember those little books that you can buy and it says 1961 and potatoes cost this and rent was this and the
I
wage
have
was this?
one.
I
Yeah.
have one too.
Oh, good.
If you look at that, and that's just kind of giving a kind of a general sense economy, right? And
Sure.
maybe a couple of stars or the top song or whatever,
Love
right?
songs. Yep. Yep.
So I love that bringing you back, right? So I'll tell you a quick story. What I was saying earlier, and I'm just refreshing my page, so I'm getting the right amount of people.
He's not
So
watching hockey. That's what he's trying to say.
hockey's that way, and my team isn't playing yet. Nikki's on. Hello, my dear.
Hello, my dear.
So here's a hilarious story, right? So mom is born in 1944,
Okay.
80 this year. So I bring Ethan over because Ethan is my 18-year-old son. And he speaks French. He's bilingual, so him and mom speak French.
Oh,
Now, mom speaks broken French, Fringlish,
right.
and Ethan's fine. So I don't know how we got on. So Ethan wants to be a scientist.
Right.
So he's going to do 2 years of engineering after high school this year. He's straight A's. He's such a good kid. It's like your kids. They're just good kids, right? And so somehow we're talking about him going to be a scientist, and mom goes, oh, in my day we didn't have science, and we didn't. Ethan goes like he's doing like calculus and algebra. She goes, oh, I don't even know what those are. And so you guys don't know our mom, but she kind of goes in her tangent. Nothing wrong. I go in my tangents.
Sure.
Michelle just had a tangent. No, but but I'm sitting there and I'm just saying, so I'm letting this go. And this is me, for those that don't know me that well. And it's probably, I only do this with my mom. So I love her to death and I can get frustrated easy. So I'm getting older and getting grumpier. Not on here though. And so she's going, oh, there was no, like, we didn't have that then. I said, Mom, I let her and Ethan's finished talking. And I said, Mom, you did, but it just wasn't what this got to experience.
Right.
It's not what you did. So from her background and being from an impoverished area and poor and all of these things, because we have an aunt. So her older sister, Mona, who has passed away, married Charlebois, Sean's son. What's his name? Anyways, so Uncle Charlebois, well, he was a scientist.
Oh.
So he was grandma's age.
Yeah.
He's 80-ish, or a little bit older, I think. Well, he would have had to take subjects that would have been in that field. So mom goes, oh, well, it was engineering. So Ethan goes, well, engineering is a part of science.
Right.
So then he's explaining algebra, and mom is like, I'm using this, I'm not making fun of her. She's lost. Like, it's obvious. Right. He goes, well, it measures the curve of this. And she goes, I don't know. She goes, we just did 2 + 2. We just did basic math and reading and writing and whatever, right? So, but what it made me kind of think about preparing for today is how you can be like, so they were in the same province of Ontario, raised in the same time.
Right.
So, same political things were going on, same economy, different parents, different, probably financial, home life, right?
Sure.
And how different it is. So then it made me think of, you can have, like, use you and me. We didn't do this though, right? If you and me, when I came there last time and we met in the hotel, we actually went to that restaurant and we had the nice waitress, remember?
Yep.
Yeah. And then we did the interview, right? So you and me can write, if we, at the end of that evening, we said, okay, go home, you go home, and let's write what happened tonight. We would have some core components that are the same.
Yeah.
But not tainted, but through our lens and experience, or
Yeah.
being young when we're younger as kids, what we're told. Don't look in the closet. There's a boogeyman, right? Don't get out of bed at night. There's a boogeyman under there. There's something there going to grab your feet.
Right.
So even though we grow older, we know there's no boogeyman, but there's still something about that, the power of that word from somebody who we trust.
Yeah, for sure.
The influence, right?
Yeah.
Influence is another big one. So, anyways, yeah. So it was funny with Mom, and Ethan's doing so good. And then he left her a nice note on this piece of paper. So he's drawing out science stuff, and he's trying to show her. She's going, I don't know what you're talking about. And I probably would barely know, by the way, and I'm pretty smart. But then he wrote this nice little note in French when we left. And Mom found the next morning. He says, "You're the best grandma I have. You're my favorite grandma." So it's just beautiful, right? Because it's like trying to explain somebody something in a different language. I have friends that were raised in other parts of the world, like Philippines, and they're in Canada. They speak English. They own coffee shops. Some of my customers, right? I can't relate. We can relate to life now in Canada. I can't relate to one guy living in a small village where there was no vehicles, there was a bicycle, and they had rice fields and this and that, and even though you're talking about you and me about being kind, right? Yeah. Even though they were poor, if somebody was traveling through whatever, they would always feed them. They'd always actually give them the best, right?
Yep. Yep. That's right. I see that in a lot of documentaries that I watch when it's like third world countries or poor communities, even in our first world country. And you go and you ask, like they'll have like a mud floor shack and they're eating mud patties and they'll invite somebody right in. They'll give, they share, they're kind, and it's just, it's a simpler life. And it's so interesting. And this is probably a whole nother conversation, but when you think about us with our first world country, we've made everything so complicated. We have so many stresses and anxieties and everything else, where the people that have the least are the happiest because they're more content, they're more grateful for the simple things. They appreciate just having that rice patty or whatever they are that they're eating. They're appreciative that their mud floored shack has walls on it, right? Like it's so interesting. And you know what? Sort of spinning off from that, when you get out of the big cities, you notice that a lot. When we used to go, when our sister Tammy was living in Sudbury, me and Nicole went and we visited there a bunch of times, and we sort of noticed the same thing. Like it was a different environment. It wasn't as material based as in our town and our environment. But it was just so friendly and welcoming and warm, and people didn't care if their wallpaper didn't match, right? Like, or if I don't know, just different things that maybe in a bigger city that they're more vain about. Where they're just more like, come sit by the fire and have a beer with me. Let's have a laugh and a conversation. And I think there's great value in that, in getting back to those basics, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so as well.
I want to type in there if anybody has any questions. So we're talking about experience, right? So we're talking about different parts of experience. So again, I was telling Michelle, I'm going to read another quote because I have a few.
Okay.
So here's a quote. Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. Helen Keller.
Can you say it again? I was typing.
You can't type and listen? You're getting old. No, okay. Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. And I can tell you why I want this. I've got 4. This one fits into this time where we're talking. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. Helen Keller.
I love
and
it.
She's not talking about the success. See, the reason I put it here, I'm going to throw a word out that we've heard, and I'm going to use it in a different context. So understand me. So privilege. So this idea of privilege.
Right.
And I have a famous saying that I might get a tattoo or hashtag, you know what you know, you don't know what you
Don't know.
don't know. Pretty basic, right? So this idea of our Western experience. So I was one of the courses I took on was a psychologist that was talking about phobias, fears,
Hmm.
but he's a Scottish guy. He kind of branched off into this thing, and he's from Scotland, right? But he says in our kind of Western culture, including Europe in there,
Yep.
he goes, we we were raised to um, to be self-centered in a way. Not all of us, by the way,
Of
but
course.
we were raised to, when you turn 16, get your first car and get a job and get a house. And so this mindset, and it's not blaming anybody, it's kind of comes out of an industrial kind of mindset. But this thing, and not saying there's no kind people or generous people, because there always is, right?
Yep.
But we don't we have a hard time understanding when our neighbor, like out where I'm in Vancouver, where maybe the neighbor next door, it's an East Indian family and they have sons and daughters and sons-in-laws and daughters-in-law and uncles and aunts all live in a house, all sacrificing space
Yep.
in order to take care of a mortgage or rent.
Sure.
Or you'll see them. I mean, Teresa, my wife, just went to something like this last year. Her best friend is a nurse. She's East Indian, and her son got married, and way more than us. But they throw the craziest weddings, and like they have to invite 1,000 people because it's a village thing, right?
Yep.
And it's not about showing off wealth, but everything is there. Everything, they'll sacrifice everything for their kids.
Right.
And this culture, talking about like Philippines or African people we know from different parts of the world, raised in that.
Yeah.
They come here, and some come for different reasons, but they come to North America, and it's hard. Like I have an Iranian family, a Ukrainian, not Iranian, Ukrainian family that I met a few months ago, and even though it's kind of in this Western world thing, but they're coming out of no jobs, no running water, bombings, just things that we only see on a TV show or a movie.
Right.
And it's such a shock, right? So this idea of our Western experience. So I'm going to tell you another show. Do you remember a show called To Tell the Truth?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, there's a new one out now. I'm kind of into game shows. I PVR everything, and I kind of half watch them, right?
Yeah.
So To Tell the Truth, old show, and now there's a new version of it. And so the guy who runs it is from The Blackish. I can't remember the actor's name. Anyways, fun, a black fellow and his mom is so funny, right? But the reason I'm bringing it up, so To Tell the Truth was about, they would have 4 people and they'd all say, my name is so, I invented so, I did
That's
so,
right.
whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And the panel could ask them questions, and the person who was really the person had to tell the truth, but all the imposters could lie.
Right.
That perspective, the idea of like those people aren't like given a much information about, like, say the person was an astronaut or whatever, like whatever. You got to watch the show. Go YouTube it.
I will.
But I love. I'm talking to the people joining us here. But go watch it. It's not a bad show to watch, but it's interesting to think of how we shape our core values and opinions, and the whole idea of experience. There's a few more joining us. It's great. Thanks for joining us.
Is it called the same thing, or does it have a different name? Is it
It's
still
called
To Tell the Truth?
To Tell the Truth. I will find a YouTube one and post it on the group. I'll just do a drop in,
good.
right?
Okay.
But it's interesting to me. It's because I love psychology. I love the way I love mankind, even with our wrestles, right? And most, everybody here has a bit of my story. I've been in jail a few times. My life's better. I'm a cancer survivor, but I had a really rough upbringing. I was dealing with my trauma and stuff, right? So anyway, I'm not like this golden child. I didn't have a golden spoon. Probably none of us have. And if you have, there's no judgment, right?
Yeah.
But we know what we know. And so if all of a sudden, if somebody came in, and it depends on, like, it depends on your personality. You may have been raised in a way that you're very critical. You're a critical thinker. That doesn't mean you're bad, by the way.
Right.
You may been in a real, like one of our sisters, I won't mention her name. She's not on here. Starts with a T. Second letter is an A. So it's not the other sister. But, and I'm not saying this sister is gullible, but she's so easygoing that she just would probably believe what anybody says. And I don't mean that, right?
Yeah.
And somebody like you are not like that.
Not like that.
You know, you're like David Duchovny in X-Files. The truth is out there.
Yeah. Truth is out there. I'm not watching The Sun.
I know it's there. Well, it might be there. No, I'm joking.
But it was there yesterday. It'll be there tomorrow.
I think it's the same time, and if it's not, we're all going to be gone, right?
That's right.
But
Well,
if
sorry, go ahead.
no, you finish your thought.
Well,
I got like 10.
yeah. So yeah, you got more quotes. So don't forget, we got to do our this or that questions after. So it's interesting because when you look at your own relationship with relationships, right? And we've talked about this before. If you've had multiple relationships, no matter what kind of relationships it is, if you're the common denominator, right? Who's
Yeah.
there? Is it Ethan?
No, I'm just looking at my bookshelf.
Well, tell your bookshelf I said hi. So when you've had multiple relations, so let's even just say friendships. So
Yeah, because I
lots of
feel a little
friendships-
awkward for a minute. I didn't know like if I need to up my relationship game.
No, you're good. You're good. You've taken your experience into account. So if you tend to always have friends that take advantage of you, for an example, you're the common denominator, right? So making sure that you step back and you just reflect and think, okay, I'm the common denominator. These are my experiences. How can I learn and grow, and what can I do differently? Right. And I'm not saying, people have to prove themselves to earn trust, that sort of thing. But how many red flags does it take before you're like, I have a pattern here. I'm always buying. I'm always, whatever that scenario is. Or people, if you're surrounded, we talked before about you're the average of the 5 people you associate with. So, where do you fit in there? Are you the one that is always like, are people really celebrating you? Right? Have you ever heard that? Like when something good happens to you and you share it with your people, how are they responding? Are they celebrating you? Are they, oh, you're so lucky? Are they jealous? Those things all show a true level of caring. Do you know what I mean? And it shows like commitment in relationships. We have, I think, very few people that we really have those true relationships with, but you want to make sure that they're pure. And when you think about your whole life, you've had those ones that they were one-sided, or they didn't serve you well, or what maybe there's a lot of drama, or maybe it's talking about like romantic relationships. Are you always trying to fix somebody, right? Because people aren't fixable, they have to fix themselves. So is that where you should learn from the experience? Make yourself first, focus on, right? And then let the right person come to you. Like when you're looking, I always say this, when you're looking for love, you're looking for trouble, right?
Yeah.
Lower the bar. Absolutely.
That's why I look for hate. No, I don't. I'm joking. So I want to do something. If you're okay, you trust me, right? So I want to do a little bit of a.
Sure.
No, it's not psychological warfare,
Good.
but we're gonna. I want to try to help people process. So
Yes.
first of all, if you're a negative naysayer, more than likely you take a couple deep breaths, close your eyes, feel your breath inside you. No, that's another session. But we feel, no, I'll say it this way, we feel more comfortable if, and this isn't a bad thing, by the way, if we are if we're anti-government, we're more comfortable around people like us. Doesn't
Oh,
mean
yeah,
we're bad, whatever, right?
you have
So
something
part
in
of
common. Yeah,
yeah. So and that's normal. If you're into having a drink, a social drink, or
yeah,
a social puff or something, then you're more comfortable with people like you. So that's not a bad thing, right? But see, you're through experience, right? You're only. I'm going to question in a minute. You're only going to grow.
that's right.
You're only going to grow as much as you allow yourself to grow. So one of the things I shared before, I finished a course last year about phobias and fear, right?
Right.
So if the example was if you were a young child and a dog came up and barked aggressively, yeah, he doesn't even have to bite you, and you're in that molding stage of like say 3, 4, whatever, right? But you haven't matured brain, even your thought process, right? You're very reactionary, right? And so that will stay with you. Now, if you have somebody with you, a parent is saying, "Oh no, the dog's fine. Here, come here, come on," like um,
Yeah,
help them through that. So we find. I'm going to go to the question. So we the some of the fear is if we have say conversation of people who aren't like minded. Michelle and I, for people that don't know, like we're brother and sister, obviously. We're twins, except I have a beard and she shaved hers off last week. No. And we Michelle and I we're enjoying this journey we're on now, but we're pretty similar in a lot of ways. But I do think there's some things that we would say we have different um, thoughts or convictions or whatever, right?
yeah,
We're not we're not threatened by each other
right.
in that. Because sometimes if you're with somebody and you feel that they're going to brainwash you, and especially if you're like a non-aggressive personality, this is sorry, rabbit trail. This is going into this whole like right now. I deal with a lot of the language out there right now. Understandably, is narcissism, right? So
Right.
this idea of narcissism, and what I tell, hello people, hello Nadine, and other people that are joining us. Um, the, one of the words that I use when I'm counseling, right, is you've heard narcissism and a lot of that stuff, and there's a lot of truth. So please don't like judge me here. Give me a second, right? I find now that when I'm talking and counseling men that I'm dealing with some men that have narcissistic qualities.
Right.
So right now we have all those like, hey, if you fit into this list A, B, C, it's like self-diagnosing yourself. Oh,
Right.
my butt was itchy. I better check that out. Oh no, I'm gonna die.
I have
Right,
butt
whatever. Right?
cancer.
Yeah, I got follicles. What's happening with those follicles? Right, some
Oh
weird
my
stuff. Right.
God. Absolutely true. That's right.
Yeah. So the thing what experience can do. I'll read the next quote that I'm going to ask you a few questions. You're
Okay.
the guinea pig.
All right.
Experience is a lesson of the past to lessen the burden of the future. Michael Sage. Want to say it one more time?
No, I got it. That's a good one.
Okay. One more, anonymous. I'll say the last two, then I'll go to question.
Okay.
This is anonymous. Life is a journey with problems to solve, lessons to learn, but most of all, experiences to enjoy.
Love it.
I know you like that last part, right? Hey,
Yeah.
I'm not going to let life suck my life out of me.
No.
Forget it, right?
Well, and honestly, I was always raised, and again, this is the influence of my parents, that's our purpose is to experience, learn, and grow. So I've always had that mind and procreate. I've always had that mindset. So
Yeah,
I think that it doesn't make it less painful. Trust
yeah,
me, right? But
yeah,
I think after the fact, it's like, okay, that's what I'm here for, to evolve as a human being. So yeah, I love it.
yeah. And the thing is, here's an analogy in a house. If you close all the windows, so we don't want things smog and
Yeah,
don't overthink this, right? But
right.
if you don't leave windows open to allow experiences of life to come, you may short yourself. You may You may miss out. So
100%.
last quote is, every new experience brings its own maturity and a greater clarity of vision. Indira Gandhi.
There you go.
So this idea of not to be fearful, like fear and all of these things in life, they like there's kind of healthy fear, but leave that alone. We can miss out on life because we have fear is basically a preconceived, an anxiety, a preconceived something that hasn't happened. We even though there could have been a bad mailman last week, but now the new mailman's come and we think he's bad because the last one was bad, right? So here's a question for you, right? So you would you call yourself how would you categorize yourself as a thinker? No wrong answers here, by the way.
You give me an example. What do you mean?
Like if somebody says to you ABC, I'm thinking of your radio show, by the way, so there's a hint.
Yeah.
So what type of personality type? Do you just take things as people say, or do you investigate?
Right. So emotions aside, I investigate, but you have to, and it's a muscle you have to flex to, right? To not be emotional. And the first thing that I think of is it's so easy to respond to something online. And like, I swear I delete more than I hit send, right? Because it's really easy to just respond. But then when you stop and you think about it, you can go and you can find the facts. Obviously, you have to look at the source because there's a lot of paid sources. But yeah, so I would have to say I think that's a critical thinker, right? So
Yeah.
I go and I do the legwork. And it's interesting as you were, sorry to deviate back a little bit, but as you were talking about being trapped in that fear, sadly, we see a lot of that today with all the things that have happened over the last 4 years. And some people are sort of trapped where they're still not going out or they're over preparing. And again, no judgment, but that's environment that has created that anxiety. And it's hard to get yourself back in the game now or whatever. So I think it's more prevalent than ever that we need to, just do that legwork, do that thinking, look at the whole picture instead of looking at the tunnel vision of one or two people.
Right.
Right.
So back to what you said. So everybody here, Michelle's my sister. She's trusting me in this, and I'm using just Michelle as an example. So I'm questioning her, and she's being vulnerable, which is great. And there again, there's no right or wrong. We're trying to find understanding. When I see ABC or hear ABC, where do I go? Why do I go? So you said something about being a critical thinker, which I am too. And you mentioned about taking the emotion out. So can you explain that again? So so for you, are you an emotional person?
Somewhat. I think we all are, if we're human and we're breathing. If you woke up this morning, you're going to be somewhat emotional, but again, that's where we have to rein it in because, and it ties back in with actually last week we talked about the triggers, right? It really ties in nicely. So, you can, and it, oh my gosh, all of our conversations all flow into each other because it also ties in with what we were saying about how, you could text me something. And if I'm in an emotional mood and I already have a preconceived idea what you're saying, I could misread the whole thing. It could be punctuation matters, right? It could be that I didn't see the comma that created the pause, or I didn't see that you put an if in front or something like that. So I could be emotional and I could respond, what do you say? Blah, 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 blah. Or I could be in like in Weight Watchers, and the coaching I do, we talk a lot about being in a cold state or being in a hot state. And all of these are all effective when you're in the cold state. If you're in the hot state and you're rushed or you're emotional, or you got drama, or something's going on, even if you're distracted, even if you're distracted by nonsense, you're still distracted. So then you can respond, right? It's like when we talked before about, when I used to waitress, I didn't know that that guy just got in trouble by his boss when he came in and chewed me out over a sandwich. It really had nothing to do with me. I had to remove myself from his drama and carry on with my day, right? So when you see so many things going on, especially right now, because there's so many hot topics, it's really easy to get caught up in the moment and respond, but you have to remove yourself, just like what you started with, that we can't paint everybody with a broad brush, right? So you have to just, but you have to have that clear head and source it and figure it out, all this stuff, the hot topic, no pun intended, of climate change, right? Like, don't go with a meme somebody made, or whatever. Like, use your own common sense, do your own research, do some research on trees, do some research on the environment, do some research on cycles, right? Like, all these things. And I'm not telling you it's right or wrong, come to your own conclusion, but you have to do it when, again, just when you're chilling out and you don't want to watch the news, do some research, start looking things up, but always make sure you know who financed that's the big thing. And that's something, when Sandy and I used to have our show, and we're going to get her on here chatting with us at some point. We used to talk about that at all. Like, for example, 9 out of 10 dentists use Colgate. Who paid those 9 out of 10 dentists? Like, what was the source of that report? Right? So it's
And what they did, you're bang. I was just going to say the exact same thing about the dentist, right? But
mm,
so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. We're over time, but fine. Who
yeah,
cares? So when you say that you're a critical thinker,
yeah,
um, and a critical thinker, critical is kind of the word half the time is misrepresented, because critical can be a negative. It's not meant to be negative. A self thinker could be. There's other words to put in there, right? So when you become like being a critical thinker, so
yeah,
you look for facts. You just don't believe what you're told, right?
yep,
So I'm going to throw I'm going to throw a big haymaker at the end, just for fun for everybody. We might get some comments, but I'm throwing it up there anyway.
okay.
But how do you give us an example of the process? So if Tom comes to you and say, cows aren't really real, they're goats. I'm just being stupid, right?
Right.
Or here, let me use one. I just want the process of how you process it.
Okay. Yeah.
I tell you, I don't have the answer, by the way. I tell you that cows have never been wild; they've always been a domesticated animal. So
Oh,
I give you my thought. How do you, through critical thinking, what do you do?
I don't go to Wikipedia. I'll tell you that first,
Okay.
because I even put myself in Wikipedia. Anybody can, I'm in there for free hugs across Canada. Me and Nicole, I added pictures and everything. Now, it was true, but the point is how easy it is to do that. So I would find some sort of legit farming source, and I would go back through the history. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But something else that I do, Tom, is before I put a lot of effort into it, I really ask myself, does it really matter? And do I really care? And the reason why is that we can spend a lot of time going through this stuff just to prove that we're right, which is just an interesting twist. That's my haymaker,
Well,
which,
we
right?
can do the opposite though. We
Yeah,
can like the whole idea about conspiracy, which is fascinating in itself. And like
love
I
it.
watch that stuff on Netflix. I'm not like thrown one way or not. I'm not scared. So
Mhm.
this is what experience has brought me. I am not scared. I'm actually even more in interested in people that are not like me. And
Right.
I'm learning because I'm in sales, maybe helps too. I'm not feeling I'm going to be brainwashed. I'm going to be sold something. I don't have to get defensive.
Yeah.
I don't have to get protective. I'm pretty confident in who I am, but that's good. That's all good. You are too. We're pretty smart people.
Yeah.
We don't know everything, but we're confident, right? We're willing to learn new things, though. I would say that, right?
I was just going to say, are you willing to be wrong?
But here's the thing. Here's my statement. My big statement is, and I had this thought years ago, and the thought is through experience and knowledge. So experience and knowledge, doing a science kind of divided by crop, whatever weird stuff, right? We all come, this is the word I use. We come to a conclusion, and I call it the God of our own understanding.
Right.
It's not all bad, right? So we can believe, like I said, me and Michelle, and I don't think we're really far off, but we may have different ideas of. We're not going to like vaccines. We can go into the government, like Michelle mentioned about this fear, forgetting the right and wrong, but how very easy in our culture people are manipulated, right? So part of why I was asking Michelle those questions is, first of all, find somebody that you trust, that you feel safe with, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to grow, I'm going to use a silly thing, and we won't. You guys can post on here if you want to like challenge me or make some jokes in that, right? So I like the unexplained things on like Netflix, like those series, and if it's somebody got like picked up by aliens or different things, crop circles, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? And I'm not like oh my word, like I'm freaked out.
Right.
I find, and like psychology, I just find it so fascinating. And so I was telling somebody this, and they go, "Oh, if you watch it, you must believe in aliens." I said, first of all, it doesn't matter what I think, but that's not true.
Right.
That. So I actually think through knowledge and experience, when we learn to investigate, but when I went across Canada, I was out of a dream. The dream was around me interviewing Indigenous people, which I've said before, but that's not really what happened. I drove across Canada during COVID. I was pretty isolated. I was driving 12 hours a day, and I interviewed a nurse. And to me, it had nothing. She was a nurse in Red Deer. It had nothing to do with her perception being an ER nurse on ABC. This woman I know she's a kind woman, and she sacrifices her life. So she has come to her conclusion of what she believed what was going on. And if we agree or not, she's still a kind, nice person, right? And so I interviewed her. I interviewed a fellow who I used to work for his dad, but he's a professor at the University of Saskatoon, and his name is Marty. And he teaches politics. So we talked about politics, and I have my thoughts and I'm probably a bit opinion, but he talked about, because he's a professor and he wasn't painting one party, he didn't do that, but he actually helps his university students to be self-thinkers. Okay, you may bend towards liberal, but think about, don't be fearful of information the other. Don't be, if you're 4 out of 5 dentists and you all think that fluoride, 4 out of 5 think fluoride's good and the one doesn't, the 4, don't be afraid to hear the argument of the one and the one. When I was in high school, I just had this memory. When I was in high school, I was poor, but I went to a rich kid's high school in Toronto, and I was smart, but I was poor. So I was picked on a little bit, right? But one of my favorite classes I was on the debating club.
Oh, cool.
What was the best thing? Just triggered it, made me think about it. You know what I learned? So I'm actually thinking, man, that experience in that class, what the teacher did like 40 years ago, almost 50 years ago, you know what he would do? And I remember so clearly, we had a debating team that we were preparing to do against other schools with, right? So for the first week we took defending the penalty when they what they call when they took your life. I'm brain fart here. When the death penalty. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
so
Oh,
we
wow.
were arguing, and this was just after, it was in the early 70s, but so my first side was arguing the why we should keep the death penalty.
Oh, okay.
And we would argue like in a court against the other.
Yep.
The week after, this team, my team, would switch and we would argue against the death penalty.
Oh, interesting.
And thinking about it now, it is somehow under the line I haven't thought about forever, for maybe since then.
Right.
But it's interesting how things shape you. And I would say with all of us, by the way, good and bad.
Yeah.
You'll have like Michelle mentioned earlier, if you were on earlier, Michelle mentioned about these older people that when she was pregnant, that were looking at her and blah, blah, blah. And then she shared about realizing when they were 14 and 15, because they were in the early 1900s, they were probably pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And we want to process and think things in our way. If you're just throwing this other, if you're a religious person, so you have faith, like in whatever, right? I know a lot of people that would be intimidated or scared to go to a sweat lodge,
Right.
or
Right.
intimidated to go into a temple, or ABCD, right? And I'm not saying you have to. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I believe, my conviction, we become better with better understanding.
Yes.
My coffee world, I have customers, where I am to all of Vancouver, I have customers that are Muslim, are Christian,
Yeah.
are same sex, are spirit animal, are refugee from China, all over the map,
Yeah.
rich, poor, all over the map, right? Some of them understand the industry. They've worked in restaurants before. Some have no clue. They've had to buy their job, right? And I learned to ask questions. I'm not scared to ask questions.
Yep.
I'm not scared of answers to my questions.
Good.
And that experience, I believe, for me, and not putting anybody else, helps me be well-rounded. So here's a bit of homework for us.
Okay.
And then you ask questions, right?
Okay.
Bit of homework is this. In the next week, if you can, if you can't, find, if you're in a conversation with somebody, it could be a spouse, it could be a child, it could be a neighbor, it could be a friend, family, doesn't matter, right? But you'll be on a conversation that, it doesn't matter if you're on two different sides of a topic or whatever. But I believe there's gonna be a moment, and you're gonna feel this. You're gonna feel it inside, and you're gonna go. You're gonna become inquisitive. Ask the questions.
Right.
Ask, like, why do you think that? Don't do it in a negative way. You're trying to prove somebody wrong, because you
That's
just
right.
ruined it, right?
That's right.
Try to be open to learn,
Yep.
right? A wise man says, a smart man learns from his mistake.
That's right. I love
A
it.
wiser man learns from other mistakes.
That's right. Yep. Yep. Absolutely true. And I think if I can just add to that, we have to try a little harder these days because of all the algorithms. So when
Yep.
you have two people, just, and I'm, anything, any topic, politics, say you love Turdo, and did I say that?
Turdo, yeah, I have that same shirt. I have the same shirt.
Okay, so let's say you love him and I don't.
Turdo
Everything
and dump. Turdo and dump.
That's right.
Right.
Let's dump them. Anyways, sorry. So, but let's say we're on different paths with that. We have to keep in mind, and this is where kindness comes in, whether it's, all the different things we've been divisive about over the last 4 years, because it's really been part of our downfall, in my humble opinion, creating a lot of conflict. But you have to keep in mind, all of your algorithms would be pro him. It would be, oh, isn't he doing good? Oh, rebate checks are great. Oh, isn't he wonderful? Because. Where all my algorithms will be the opposite. They'll be like, we need more trees people live in tents, whatever. So that is just so important to realize, no, the other person is not seeing what you're seeing. Because quite often you'll see people, whether it's, man on the street asking questions, or some different people do like Change My Mind, those sort of shows, which I absolutely love. Um, but you have to keep in mind, they haven't seen what you've seen. Like because I haven't had cable or program television, whatever you call it these days, we got rid of it in 2011. So people will there was one time I was at this barbecue and somebody referenced a joke that's really common on a commercial. Well, I'd never heard it. And I was like, oh, I was killing myself laughing. And they're all looking at me like, what's with this chick? And then my friend goes, nah, she doesn't have cable. I'd never heard it. And it was such an aha moment of how different paths we have, right? And of course, everything on television is so by design, right? So it depends, you have to really be honest and true. Where are their sources? What are they seeing? Even the ads. I mean, we have Alexa in the house, in the kitchen. I'll mention something. Next thing you know, like, oh, we're going to get a new toaster. I'll start seeing in all my algorithms, toaster on sale at Walmart. Here's a new toaster. One new toaster. Ah. So keeping that in mind, I think, is another thing. Don't assume people are seeing what you're seeing. There's
Yeah.
a gazillion sources of everything, and a smidgen is accurate. Even like, do you remember back in the day when journalists would tell just facts and it was only the anchor that gave his opinion? Those days are over, right? So
Yeah.
when you're even watching any of those shows, and that's you, me, everybody, you have to really take it with a grain of salt and realize, is he sharing a fact or is he sharing his opinion? Because a lot of times it's an opinion, and that's where critical thinking starts.
And I think so. So the thing is, if kind of recapping, it, by the way, if you like it or not, you're living through an experience today.
Absolutely.
You may be living. You may have had a good day or a bad day. Good people, bad people. A day off, a day on holidays like Michelle is, or working, listening to us, not listening to us later, right? So experience comes from living. You're just living. So how you make a conscious decision. So you can't change the way we thought, and like the way we process yesterday is gone.
That's right.
We can learn from experience. See, experience, it teaches us that we can go, interesting. So if we go into conversations, so my challenge, without fear, don't go in like, one thing I say to Michelle, not to with Michelle, a critical, like, you look at the pro and con. A critical thinker can be prone to being defensive, but you don't have to be. That being a critical thinker doesn't mean you're defensive. It means that, interesting, I'm going to check that out.
Right.
And Michelle's point about the world, about don't perceive that your truth and your fact finding,
That's right.
You have been compromised,
Right.
in a way, right?
Yeah, we
So
all have been. Yeah.
so if we're willing to be confident enough and safe enough to experience people and where they're at, and not be fearful. One of the greatest things I've had to do, like I've said before, I ended up for a small period of time in my life, ended up the streets of Vancouver. I was basically on a McDonald's, piece of cardboard, busking. I play guitar for a cheeseburger, a pack of smokes, and a fix.
Right.
And that's where I was in my early 20s. And when I've gone out, like I tell people know me now, I says, I can tell you that, but you have no perception.
That's right.
You didn't know me then. You had no, like, you know me, I'm telling you, but it can maybe not feel real, right?
Right.
You believe me, right? But I've gone on the street to do different things like kindness or food, different things, right?
Yeah.
And when in one of the things that I've learned through some of my friends in that, saying some of these people in the street, even though they're poor and have nothing, sometimes they're not food. I can't remember the correct word now. Food. It's housing or food insecurity, whatever they call it, right?
That's right.
If you ask them, it's sometimes just spending the time to listen to them
That's it.
and to talk to them. There's a fellow I interviewed. Did I play that interview for that guy on here where he didn't want to be videotaped?
You did. Yeah.
So that's friggin' sorry, 2.5 minutes of this
Yeah.
guy. I think it's one of the early ones. And we show this video, and at the end he goes, "I don't want to be videotaped," and he puts his head down. And he was a guy in the street that had extra jackets and stuff. I've seen people's kindness. Me and Michelle are kind people. We would give the shirt off our back. We just who we are. And I would encourage you to practice kindness. If you're frugal, nothing wrong being frugal. I need to learn a bit, but kindness, kindness is really important. But so that guy we interviewed, he was shy. He wasn't sure. I believe there was a bit of a mental, I don't know, schizophrenia. There was something just because of my experience, right? But once we said, okay, we won't film you. Can we just interview? Blah, 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 right?
Yep.
He's giving, we gave him a bag of bottles too. He's giving the bottles away. Then he's talking, and then he's telling us, he's telling us some lines that he's probably thought through a lot, just the way he probably processed the thing. All of that didn't matter. You know what mattered? Somebody took the time
That's right.
to talk to me and listen to me.
And actually see him, right? You're seeing him. Yeah.
If I never see him again,
yeah.
So reason talk about experience, you start allowing yourself to get out of your bubble. Yeah. And we have responsibilities and bills and kids and all, so please don't hear that, right? Michelle and I've said this. When Michelle went across the country on a toothbrush and a dime and a nickel and her daughter, Nicole.
Yeah.
I could write a song about that. And her going out and giving hugs and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet, and my experience too, going across the country, as much as it was, I probably received more.
100%.
I probably, in just spending time with people, and my thing was stories, listening to the stories, right? It didn't matter if I agree or not, it didn't matter, right? But that is a gift. You want to talk about an experience, you want to talk about enriching your life. You want to talk about if you wrestle with mental health and you're going, well, I don't know, and anxiety or different things like that. I understand. We're all walking through stuff like that in different parts of our lives. But be aware that that doesn't define you, that you can still experience life. A friend of mine passed away a couple of years ago, cancer. An older man passed away. And when he found out he had cancer, you know what he did? I remember him saying this, I don't know if I'll say it right. He goes, I'm not going to die today until my body dies, but I'm going to live today until my body dies. Oh. And I think he had like 6 months. And you know what he did? He has grandkids, all this stuff. And good friend of mine, like I've known him for 20 some years. And he just enjoyed every moment was precious.
Love it.
He savored. I remember watching him eating a burger, and it was fast food. I think it was A&W, so whatever. And his eyes were closed. This guy's like 70, right? His eyes are closed. I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm enjoying this bite of burger.
I love it. Yeah.
Word, right? Smell the flowers, right? So anyways, you had a couple of exiting questions for me.
I do. Let me think. Onion rings or French fries?
Pringles. No, French fries.
French fries? Onion rings all the way. Okay. Socks or no socks?
I would live with no socks. I'm a fun guy. No, I'm not. I would live with no.
I'm torn. No socks when I'm in the house, but I can't wear my shoes without socks.
That's me.
Right? Okay, one more. Hamburgers or hot dogs?
Okay. my son, when he comes over Friday nights, we have hot dogs all the time. When we go out, we go to different places and we judge their hot dogs. We critical
Oh, do
think their hot
you? I love it. Yes.
dogs. Hot dogs are a guilty pleasure. And
Okay.
it's probably something to do. I have a friend who owns he makes two things. He makes cinnamon buns. His company's called Sin, S-I-N, Amen Bun Company. I hate the name. This guy's been on TV. He was supposed to go on Dragon's Den. So this guy, and he does gourmet hot dogs.
Oh, okay.
I'm a sucker for a gourmet hot dog. So
Awesome.
here, hot dogs. What do you put on a hot dog? When you eat like your favorite hot dog, what do you put on it?
Cheese, relish, onions, mustard.
Onion rings?
Onion rings for sure. Not on my hot dog. No, I'd have onion rings with it. Not on my
No, put
what?
it on your hot dog. Come on, live a little.
See, now I would pick a hamburger over a hot dog for sure.
Would you put onion rings in your hamburger, or you have the raw rings?
Raw onions.
Have you ever had an onion ring in your burger?
No, I don't want to.
Why?
I don't. Well, number one, it's never crossed my mind. Number two, yeah, I don't know. I'm a simple person. I don't feel the need to indulge in that. But I would have the onion rings with it. Like, so I'd have a hamburger and onion rings. But no, not so much. Is that what you do? You put an onion ring right on your.
No. So do you
You're
like?
just trying to rope me into doing that?
Well, because I'm a chef, and what happens is we become very comfortable with our food. So I'm
Yes,
not. I've
I
eaten
think
lots of
I'm
weird
there.
food. Yeah. Do you like balsamic vinegar?
No,
Okay. Too
I'm
bad.
not food risky. I'm not food risky.
Okay. So we have a dish. I mean, what's happening with food over the years, if you people like food channels, stuff like that, I find food so incredibly inspiring and fun. And you can be simple. Like
Yep.
I don't get all fancy. I can do a little bit fancy, but I don't get there, right? But one of the things that they've realized, so there's a dish I made for mom who's very doesn't try anything different. Vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nadine. You're my hero. So here's the thing: if you want to try this, you can get balsamic vinegar, but the reduction one, so it's like more of a syrup one. It's not like just a vinegar, right? So it's
Oh,
called a
okay.
balsamic reduction.
Yeah.
Vanilla ice cream, strawberries, and balsamic on it to die for. I know, I'm just freaking you out.
Yeah.
Couple of crickets and a couple of ants, and you're no.
Oh, that look at the protein in there. Right?
But
Look at that protein.
yeah, I wouldn't. Sorry, Rab, I wouldn't bungee jump. I wouldn't like. I'm not. I
No,
don't like heights. Just being honest.
me neither.
So I have friends that challenge me to zip lines, like they're the cool macho dudes over the years, and I go
Oh,
like, I just don't. That doesn't do anything for me. So just like
okay.
you with, I'm not being a food bully,
No,
but here's the thing.
you're double
If
dog daring me though with Nadine, the two of you.
Nadine, do it.
Double dog dare.
So here's what we have to do, Nadine and other people. If you're listening, there's a group of you now. Do me a favor. I want to have fun. Okay, you got to do this too, Michelle.
Okay.
Could everybody here who's live and everybody who watches later, in the next week, you don't have to post a picture of you eating it. Post a picture of food, your food. I don't care if it's A&W or Subway. It doesn't matter. I want everybody to post a picture of a food they eat. If you want to do homemade burger or pasta, whatever you do.
All
So
right.
you have to post a picture. I will.
Okay.
I'm a
I'll
foodie.
do that.
I do lots of food pictures, by the way. I can
Well, we all eat, right? So no, I like that.
well, I probably have like 10,000 pictures of food. My
Yeah.
wife takes pictures of nature. I do food. So take a picture of some food, like a food. You go, oh, I love this, but let it be something you have. Like, don't take it out of a magazine.
Oh,
If
no,
there's,
no.
I don't know if there's magazines out there anymore. Anyways, okay, we're good.
We are great. We are
Change
great.
channel. Change. Click.
You trying to turn me off?
I'm
Well,
not
thank
going
you.
there.
Nadine, peanut butter and honey with bacon on toast. Peanut
Yes.
butter and honey with bacon on toast. Yeah.
See what did they bacon donuts, right?
No.
Like sweet and savory.
Oh yeah, sweet and savory.
So here's what you like: potato chips, right?
Love them.
Ripple chips.
So yeah, plain Lay's or plain Ruffles would be my two top choices.
Do you like
Or
nachos
I'd not like nachos.
with cheese and all that stuff on it?
I just talked about that today. I make a wonderful nacho supreme.
Next time you make your nachos, use Ruffle or Ripple chips.
Okay.
Saying, take a picture of it.
Yeah, I will. Okay,
Okay,
sounds
we
good.
better go. Thank you,
Everybody,
everybody,
thank
for
you for
watching.
coming. Don't forget how amazing you are. We'll see
Yep.
you next week.
Yep. See you.
Next
Bye.
week. Bye.
Next week.
Next week. Yeah, right.